Find us on the internet, timeandspace.us. And don't forget, download our free smartphone app.
What would you say you do here?
You are listening to The Mike Smith Show.
Personally, I like the university. They gave us money and facilities. We didn't have to produce anything. You've never been out of college. You don't know what it's like out there. I've worked in the private sector. They expect results.
This is Time and Space, hosted by Mike Smith. You're listening to Time and Space on 22nd Century Radio.
This is Mike Smith, and this is the Time and Space Radio Show. You can find us at timeandspace.us. If you're hearing this, check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/listener22. We're still doing our midnight to midnight marathon and posting all this on YouTube, so please try to follow along if you can. Doing one of our last interviews today. We're speaking to Rob Swiatek back on the show after a few months since we've spoken to you last, Rob. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, Mike. Always a pleasure.
Really appreciate it. Listen, I really just wanted to call and talk to you for a couple minutes here. Yes, about the Chinese space program and some of the recent statements, but I'll cut to the quick because you're one of the people that I was able to get on that maybe has a little bit better inroads to where the statements from Bigelow may have come from and what it is that maybe, you know, some of us might have missed not reading between the lines of those comments. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, as far as the Chinese land on the moon around one, and I think that they've only had, I think it is 2 manned space flights, possibly 3, and which is equivalent to, well, they're a little beyond where we were with Project Mercury back in the mid-'60s, and it would be like predicting what the United States was going to do on the moon back in 1962 or 1963. Yeah, we had a big idea how we were going to get there and what we might do, but to really make any hard and fast predictions, that's a very, very tough thing to do. Now, you know, one of the things just flying going beyond Earth orbit, the intensity and the effort required to keep people alive and in contact with people on the moon, for example, is an order of magnitude more than it is just in Earth orbit. So the Chinese have a long road to hoe here when it comes to just putting a man beyond Earth orbit, sending them around the moon. And bear in mind, Russia hasn't even done that yet, and they've been in the space business a lot longer than
right.
Than
That's a great point. That's a great point, and we've spoken to a couple of other guests in the course of covering this topic who said the same thing. It's kind of funny to me because if we were on a live broadcast, we might have had the ability where, you know, we would have been able to push a couple of clips or something over to you to let you know what those statements were. But yeah, it's interesting to just ask the question and hear you give the same answer that a couple of other people had said, especially the reference to the Gemini program, definitely.
Well, you know, the U.S. and who are involved with the space program and have been involved with the space program years ago, back in the 1970s, laid out programs for if we got to the moon, what we could do vis-a-vis mining, for example, or setting up bases on the moon. It's all pretty well developed, at least conceptually. And technology changes since the 1970s, I know, but at least thinkers in this country and a lot of science fiction writers and other scientists had it mapped out pretty well on how you would mine ore from the moon, how you might get water from the moon, this type thing, because we do know a lot about it.
Sure.
Just from the samples we've gotten back from Apollo and Surveyor, you know, that type thing.
Absolutely. All right, let me, if I could, just quickly keep, you know, I don't want to keep you on too long here. Let me shift gears just very quickly to the White House petition. There was a petition by Steve Bassett's group about disclosure that the White House did actually just respond to. I guess it was late last week. I'm wondering if you had followed that story at all and if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, I sure have. I have followed that story, and I do have comments on that. It's the same old bunkum from the government. They trivialize the UFO subject, and I've been around the UFO game a long time now. And anybody that's going to trivialize the UFO subject, I just sort of have a certain amount of contempt for. It's like, at least be honest. Now, the United States had an official investigatory project for UFOs for over 20 years, and they came up with over 700 cases they couldn't identify. So to say that there's nothing to the UFO subject or they've never detected a UFO is just complete bull hockey. And at least the spokesmen and the people who are with the government now should have the chutzpah to what they call, hey, our own military members, pilots, other scientists have actually seen things that our own people couldn't identify. And to just say there's nothing going on here, it's all just a bunch of fairy dust, does a disservice to the to not only the United States public, but really to the citizenry of the world.
That's very interesting take, and I appreciate you being that outspoken about it, because the more that I've asked the question and the more that I've spoken to people about it and heard their reaction, it's just a laughable kind of a response. Just out of curiosity, I mean, where do you think that response originates?
I think it originates with the person who made the remark. I don't think it goes much beyond that person. I really don't feel that the civilian government in this country and the civilian scientific leadership, even the military scientific leadership for that matter, really thinks about UFOs more than 2 seconds a year. They really don't know what's going on with the subject, and they don't want to take the time to find out what has gone on with it and what's still going on with it.
Right.
I mean, for God's sakes, MUFON from January through September of this year has logged almost 5,000 sightings. Now, some of those are old, some of them are explained objects, but 5,000 sightings, if you just say 10% of those represent real UFOs, whatever they might be, then we're talking hundreds of sightings there. So the phenomenon is alive and well, and most of the world beyond UFO investigators and devotees could absolutely care less, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. In my previous discussions with you, I've had the chance to really kind of, if you will, spread my own wings and talk to you guys about a lot of detail. In the course of doing this marathon, especially with a bunch of college students who I don't think, while they might demonstrate some interest and show, that they kind of care about the subject, are not nearly as well researched as yourself by a long stretch, or even maybe me if I get up there and start rambling about individual cases and stuff. It's funny to see them kind of look at you like, how do you know all this? I didn't know all this was going on. So yeah, it's interesting. I think at some point there's going to be enough pushback that maybe something will happen. I know you and I have gone back and forth about that before as well. So. Listen, I just want to say thanks for jumping on real quick. We'll keep this short, and please say hi to Mrs. Swiatek for me. I don't know if she wanted to actually jump on. It's interesting. I just want to go back again to your comments about the Gemini, reference, especially with the recent docking that had just occurred that the Chinese had just done, I guess, last week or the week before. I think a lot of people, it seems to me, are taking that as a really significant sign that that's only as far along as they actually are, unless we could get into the whole secret program thing. But do you think the pace at which that they've been able to at least duplicate some of the American efforts is impressive enough to warrant, a little closer attention, or do they just seem to be plodding along, mission by mission, as we...
Yeah, Mike, I think that's a very good question. I don't think they're plodding along, and I think we need to be concerned about that. Now, one has to bear in mind, looking at the Chinese space program, is that they didn't build this thing from the ground up, at least their manned space program. They did get designs from the Soviet Union, from Russia,
sure.
and on the Soyuz craft. So this is not a craft that they designed on their own. Now, the Soviet Union, back in 1959, 1960, when they were developing Vostok and the early manned flights, they built their spacecraft just on their own design and didn't have anybody to really board the U.S. So we were talking about two completely separate lines of spacecraft. But China has gotten a big boost from Russia. So yeah, certainly you're going to move along a lot faster when you have that.
No question.
And they have
about
institutional knowledge to build on. Yeah, they have the institutional knowledge to build on how you rendezvous in space, how you